Billable hours, proving billable hours is something I really want to talk about. It's, if you're my employee, you've got to hit 30 hours out of 38 hours per week billable. That's the business model. So I might let you off for 27 one week because I know that one week you'll have 4 participants in crisis and you'll probably do 36 hours billable. But for a business to be profitable in this space, you're probably going to have KPIs of 27 hours a week out of 38 or 30 hours a week out of 38. So 80% billable rate. So 20% of your time is non-billable, 80% of your time should be billable. That's why I mentioned yesterday, when I'm driving, I try and use that driving time, and I encourage all our COSs to use that driving time to create billable hours. It also creates a wonderful audit trail if you get audited by the NDIS. So, if you jump in the car and you ring a participant, as an example, some participants are difficult to get off the phone. If they're in crisis, you basically stay on as long as you have to, and maybe in the background you're pulling over and texting someone to make a welfare check. Like, anything can happen, right? But having those outbound phone calls and the lengths on your mobile phone bill is part of the audit process. So if the NDIA came to us and said, "Oh, we're not happy about this particular day where you billed this particular hours for this particular participant," there's a bunch of stuff that we're going to use. We're going to use emails that are outbound or that we've responded to. We're going to use texts that are outbound or that we've responded to. We're going to use our phone call logs, and we're going to use some other stuff. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows the expectation in the industry is 80% billable hours. And so you need to get good at it. And, it's easy to waste time. It's easy not to hit billable hours if you're fluffing around or you're not catching all the billable hours. And I've got some ideas here that will help you catch all those billable hours and be compliant if you get an audit. But working whilst you're driving is one of those ones that it's dead time otherwise. Ring your allied health professionals, ring people to chase reports, ring the NDIS, ring your participants. Just do whatever you have to make sure that sort of stuff is billable. That's my pitch to you. So here we are. I'm going to make this a bit bigger so you can probably read it a bit bigger. So proving billable hours. I just gave a bit of a rant about that, but I just want to give you some benchmarks. I put this in the chat yesterday. I think these are important for everyone to get a grip on, because I do find new people that haven't lived in this billable hours ecosystem, they struggle a little bit. So we get audited annually. We need to be able to prove our billable hours for all employees and subcontractors. And here are some industry standard benchmarks. So, are these hard and fast rules? No. Are they acceptable in the industry? Yes. So lots of the large orgs would have a sheet like this where they would say, here are the things that we think are billable, and here are the things that we are happy with from a time perspective that are billable. The one I really want to talk about, and I'll go through all these in a minute, but I really want to talk about the one I've highlighted, which is, and I said this yesterday, thinking about a participant is billable. And in actual fact, so, my role in this business is, I've got a few, but one of them is compliance. And so I'm 100% certain, because I know it's true, that thinking about a participant is billable. In actual fact, I think thinking is the most valuable activity you can do for a participant. It is 100% billable. And the example I gave yesterday was, I know I've got a participant who's probably going to roll out of their SIL, out of their accommodation soon. I'm driving out to Spears Point, where our office is. It takes me 20 minutes to get out there. I make a couple of phone calls, to some people to see if they've got any placements available. And I'm thinking about my participant the whole way out. It is 100% billable. I think there's too many people in the industry, too many good people. So the challenge is, you've got all these great people who just want to help other people and have everyone's best interests at heart. They roll into support coordination and can't hit their billable hours. So it's incredibly important that you flex the muscle that you get used to it and that you get good at it. Because, well, one, if you're working for yourself, it's all about the billable hours. And if you're working for a large org, it's going to be all about the billable hours as well. So thinking about a participant is billable. And I would suggest if you're working for someone who does not agree with that statement, find somewhere else to work, because it's just not doing the right thing for the participant, because you literally are. I can guarantee you're thinking about people all the time, and that sort of work needs to be captured some way. So file notes. Good file notes for billable tasks are mandatory. They do not need to be complex. I've just got the link there that you can go back to those other file notes that we were talking about before. And my all-time favorite is time blocking diaries. So what do I mean by time blocking diaries? This isn't a specific time blocking diary for a cause. It's just a pretty picture to show you, that you could time block. So what I would suggest people do, and what I suggest new people, particularly who haven't got their head around how to hit billable hours yet, let's say you've got, let's say you've got 10 participants or 20 participants that you're working with. You know their budgets, and you're going to put 1 or 2 hours a week into support coordination for those particular people. I would time block my diary like this. So maybe on a Monday, 9 a.m., I'm talking to Barry, or I'm thinking about Barry for an hour and a half, or I'm emailing stuff, I'm chasing stuff for Barry, I'm talking to his OTs. If I have a time block for that particular participant in my calendar, it's reasonable that at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, for example, I might not send an email for 15 minutes, but I'm thinking about Barry. It might take me a little while to get back into Barry's plan and to think about what I need to do and to get some actions and to make some calls, to do some texts. But if I time block an hour and a half for Barry and I do that work and it's in my calendar like that, even if I don't have a phone record that says I've been on a call with someone for 30 minutes this time or 30 minutes the next time, it doesn't matter, because I'm consistently time blocking and working on people's files, working on their plans. Now, that will radically change, because you'll have it all planned out and nothing will work and nothing will happen, and you can't get a hold of people and all that kind of stuff. But to have a start to your week, look, this is like a perfect week, right? If you have a start to your week where you have time blocked your participants, you can move them around, you can adjust the times, you can do lots of things, but it makes it easy to justify to the NDIS that you have your act together from a compliance perspective. So I think time blocking and / utilization of car driving time and / you looking at these benchmarks up here on what you can charge and what's expected to charge and what's acceptable in the industry. Those are they're my 3 mega tips on billable hours and hitting KPIs for people, whether it's yourself or a large org. I'm just going to talk about the benchmarks here for phone calls, face-to-face meetings, etc., etc. So these are all averages. So the way I look at most things, over a 90-day period. So over 90 days, the average phone call, including voicemails, is probably about 6 minutes. That's why there's an industry benchmark standard on it. Some phone calls, 35 minutes. Some phone call, and if they are 35 minutes, you should bill 35 minutes or capture that in your time blocking or however you do it. But if you're just making a lot of random phone call here, trying to get this done, trying to check that the support workers have turned up, it doesn't matter if those high volume phone calls take 30 seconds or 10 seconds or 12 minutes. The average over 90 days, including voicemails, is going to be 6 minutes. So if your process to think about billable hours is going to be at the end of the day, you look at what your SMSs have been sent, how many of those, how many phone calls, and maybe you're not time blocking, so you're not sort of chunking down time and doing that kind of thing. These benchmarks are going to help you a lot. So email one way, send only, 6 minutes average. So classic example there. Imagine you're sending out 20 emails to, different service providers trying to get somebody who has available capacity to do a report for your participant. All those emails are billable at 6 minutes each. It's an average over 90 days, right? So email two-way, which is a read and reply, 12 minutes average. An SMS text read and reply, 6 minutes. Travel one way, you can claim 30 minutes. Plan reviews often take, you can get a plan review done in 30 minutes minimum. But man, I've taken 3 hours. So if it takes 3 hours, I'm billing 3 hours. I just have to justify it. And the example I gave yesterday was this participant has a brain injury, they've got complex PTSD, they're bipolar, they don't feel comfortable answering questions unless I'm there. They requested me to be there. So all of those things I've file noted, and I charge the 3 hours for the plan reviews. And face-to-face meetings, minimum 30 minutes. So look, if you've got a low needs participant, most of those face-to-face meetings probably will be 30 minutes. And if you've got a high need participant, or an example I gave yesterday was we've got a First Nations Indigenous support coordinator up on the North Coast. She takes longer than everyone else because she does it in a way that is culturally respectful, and as she should. So these aren't hard and fast rules. All that she has to do is really note that she's done it in a culturally respectful way. And as far as I'm concerned, from a compliance perspective, that's okay, because you're sitting right under the code of conduct there. You need to be mindful of people's culture and their language, and how fast they understand things and what their background is, and all those kinds of things. So that's a pretty good, those benchmarks are pretty good for people to sit on and learn about and think about them. Invoices. Invoice template for hours billed. When we get new subcontractors on, they often ask us, how do I send the invoices? What happens? This is just a link. You can jump on and download a Excel spreadsheet, basically, that you can manually do an invoice and send to us if that's what you want to do. This is an example of an invoice that gets sent to Hayley, who's our admin on the admin team. She also does a lot of the compliance. So, you do your invoice up for the last weeks, you bundle in all your levels of support coordination. Lots of our subcontractors, the way we pay subcontractors is probably worth discussing. So if you're super new and you don't know anything and you're going to call us every day, we might pay you $60 an hour. So we get paid our $100.14 or something. We run all the compliance, we run all the risk, we hold insurances from our end and all that sort of stuff. We might pay you $60 an hour because the resources, the inputs from our end are much higher than, let's say, somebody who's coming in as a contractor with 20 of their own participants and they've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and they're just moving from one organization they're subcontracting to another. So we might pay $80 an hour to those people who I know aren't going to call us. Maybe they're already using a Stulty, so they don't need any support on our billing system. And I know they're going to be compliant with their file notes because it's easy to see, right? So that's kind of how we look at it. Are they going to, a subcontractor is going to be high maintenance, high resource load, or no maintenance, low resource load, and we adjust our contract rate to suit that. So that's what's called an aggregation model. So most of the financial services industry works on that. So as a financial planner, we would have a license, and then we would, I'll walk back a bit. So we have our own license, and then we basically subcontract to probably an Australian listed company who has a large AFSL license, and they take 20% of whatever income we make, or 15% or 30% or whatever the agreement is. And it's also dependent generally on the resource loads that you place in the company. So that's a pretty standard subcontracting model, aggregation model.